Colonel Shahid, who is a professor of medicine at Islamic International University and a consultant endocrinologist at Hearts International Hospital. He's going to kindly take us through his experience in the management of acromegaly from local perspective.
I will start my discussion with a brief outline of 2018 recommendations of acromegaly consensus group. You have you all were already familiar with it, and the previous talk has enlightened us also. A multidisciplinary team approach is required for the management of acromegaly, preferably at a pituitary tumor center of excellence if possible. For biochemical control of the disease, growth hormone should be suppressed below 0.4 microgram per liter after OGTT, or IGF-1 should be in the normal reference range. Wait at least 12 weeks after surgery to assess IGF-1 levels, and do not measure growth hormone in patients with receiving pegvisomant. Surgical resection of the pituitary adenoma by an experienced neurosurgeon is the first line of treatment and represents the best opportunity for cure. And in patients with persistent disease after surgery, first-line medical therapy is with first-generation somatostatin receptor ligands or somatostatin receptor analogs, octreotide LAR or lanreotide autogel. Cabergoline can be used if IGF-1 is less than 2.5 times the upper limit of normal. If first-generation somatostatin analogs are not successful in normalizing IGF-1 and patient shows a partial response, we can increase the first-generation somatostatin analog dose or increase the dose frequency of lanreotide autogel. And we can also add cabergoline to first-generation somatostatin analogs. We can switch to pasireotide LAR, which is a second-generation somatostatin analog, if there is minimal or no response and there is a tumor concern, tumor size and growth concern. Or we can switch to pegvisomant if there is minimal or no response and patient has impaired glucose metabolism, because as we know now that pasireotide causes hyperglycemia because it inhibits insulin secretion. If there is minimal or no response, there is a tumor concern and patient also has impaired glucose metabolism, we can use a combination of pegvisomant with first generation somatostatin analogs. So this is a summary of the guidelines of the treatment. If biochemical control is not achieved after second line treatment, we can use stereotactic radiosurgery or reintervention with surgery. Temozolomide is reserved for aggressive or proven malignant tumors in close cooperation with neuro-oncologists. Now, before I present my experience and perspective, a few facts about the morbidity and mortality of acromegaly in literature. The morbidity and mortality with acromegaly is directly related to the degree of hypersecretion of growth hormone by the tumor. Morbidity and mortality can be greatly reduced with early diagnosis and successful management. The post-treatment growth hormone concentration is probably the best predictor of survival in acromegaly for all causes of death, independently of the types of complications. From the 17 studies published before 2008, the mortality in acromegaly was increased, while from 9 studies published after 2008, the mortality was not different from the general population, mainly due to increased use of somatostatin analogs, but some other factors also, as highlighted by a previous speaker. However, in studies published before and after 2008, the mortality was not increased in patients who achieved biochemical control by whatever method, while it was higher in those who had active disease. The effects of specific treatment modalities on mortality in patients not cured with surgery are unclear. Potential complications associated with radiotherapy are hypopituitarism and possibly development of a second intracerebral tumor, cerebrovascular disease, and neurocognitive defects. Data linking conventional radiotherapy with increased mortality might not apply to stereotactic radiosurgery given the potential improvements in the treatment outcomes. Now I will share my clinical management experience with 51 patients of acromegaly and gigantism managed and followed over a period of about 6 years. I will not go into the details of the clinical parameters or other aspects of the study, but keep myself to the treatment outcome. Transsphenoidal surgery to remove pituitary adenoma was recommended as the first-line treatment. Pharmacological management and radiotherapy were used when the patients were not biochemically cured after transsphenoidal surgery or in those who were unwilling for surgery. Patients were considered to achieve remission when serum IGF-1 was within normal range and or basal growth hormone level was below 1 microgram per liter. 27 patients opted for transsphenoidal surgery and 7 were cured after surgery. Rest showed partial response and 2 of the patients developed hypopituitarism after surgery. Radiotherapy was used in 18 patients and 11 have achieved remission till now. Fractionated external beam radiation was used in 9 patients, 3 have achieved remission till now and 1 has developed hypopituitarism. Stereotactic radiosurgery, both gamma knife and cyber knife, were employed in 9 patients. 8 have achieved remission till now with a median follow-up of about 3 years and 3 have developed hypopituitarism. Drugs were used in 35 patients, octreotide LAR, cabergoline and bromocriptine also. 6 patients achieved biochemical control on drug treatment, 5 with octreotide LAR and 1 with cabergoline. Rest showed partial response. Response with bromocriptine was fairly poor and so most of them were switched over to other treatments. Comparing the treatment outcome in patients with macroadenoma and microadenoma, 34 patients had macroadenoma and 17 microadenoma. Growth hormone levels and IGF-1 levels were fairly high in patients with macroadenoma. 25 patients with macroadenoma underwent surgery and 4 achieved remission after surgery. Rest showed partial response. 3 patients with microadenoma opted for surgery and all 3 were cured after surgery. 16 patients with macroadenoma received radiotherapy and 10 have been cured by now. 2 patients with microadenoma received radiotherapy and 1 is cured. 5 patients out of 23 with macroadenoma showed remission on drugs and 1 out of 12 with microadenoma showed biochemical control with drugs. The response was poor in microadenoma because most of these patients received cabergoline. They were not given. Remission rate after surgery was not very good in our patients because most of the patients who opted for surgery had macroadenomas. Transsphenoidal surgery has better results in patients of acromegaly with microadenoma or intracellular macroadenoma. Vast majority of patients with acromegaly have macroadenomas, often with supracellular extension, as was in our cohort also. Pharmacotherapy was employed using somatostatin analogs or dopamine agonists. Newer somatostatin analogs and pegvisomant were not prescribed due to non-availability. 38.5% patients on octreotide LAR achieved normalization of IGF-1. This response could have been better if compliance was better. Poor compliance was a major problem due to very high cost of octreotide LAR and availability issues with cabergoline. So for achieving remission, after partial response to surgery, we relied on radiotherapy, both fractionated external beam radiation and stereotactic radiosurgery. 4 patients opted for radiotherapy as primary treatment and 3 of them have achieved remission. 3 patients with macroadenoma at diagnosis who were controlled on pharmacotherapy after transsphenoidal surgery They opted for radiotherapy to achieve permanent remission due to the high cost of the treatment. In a recent analysis of 352 patients from the German acromegaly registry who received fractionated radiotherapy or stereotactic radiosurgery, about 75% of patients are in remission or controlled after 10 years. They also found a slightly faster remission rate after stereotactic radiosurgery like us, and their rate of pituitary insufficiency was higher in fractionated radiotherapy patients. Now, to conclude my discussion, the three currently available approaches to controlling growth hormone or excess IGF-1 excess are neurosurgical removal or debulking of the pituitary tumor, medical therapies to reduce growth hormone hypersecretion or growth hormone effect, and pituitary radiotherapy. Medical therapies, somatostatin receptor ligands and growth hormone receptor antagonists achieve very effective disease control without any deleterious effect on residual pituitary function. Cost of lifelong treatment with newer medical therapies is very high, leading to poor compliance in a resource-limited country like ours. Radiotherapy is now generally regarded as third line behind surgery and medical therapy, but still a good option for achieving disease control in a resource-limited situation. Development of complications in relation to stereotactic radiosurgery are expected to be less, but requires further evaluation. Thank you.